Two Forms of Spreading Culture: When Museums and Social Media Combine, by Samantha Murphy. For this presentation, I will be looking at how social media has changed traditional museum culture, as well as how the impact of social media has played a role in helping raise awareness for museum institutions, while also aiding museums in the spreading of the ideas of different cultures and nations on a global scale. As a main example, I will be looking at the looting of the National Museum of Iraq that took place in 2003 during the Gulf War. According to the Oxford Dictionary, a museum is defined as, quote, a building in which objects of historical, scientific, artistic, or cultural interest are stored and exhibited, end quote. Museums are also a haven for archaeologists, anthropologists, and historians alike. Museum institutions also provide a great comprehensive archaeological record of artifacts that give great insight to the history of a nation. Furthermore, a nation's artifacts are critical in representing the cultural heritage of a nation, ultimately making museums a hub for learning about other nations' traditions. For example, back in 1922, archaeologist Howard Carter opened the tomb of King Tutankhamun. It was through the relatively undisturbed artifacts that was critical in helping spread the knowledge of the ancient Egyptian pharaohs. Even in his own book, The Tomb of Tutankhamun, discovered by the late Earl of Carnarvon and Howard Carter, Volume 2, Carter describes how the preserved tomb allowed him to gain more of an understanding of the Egyptian burial customs, religious beliefs, traditions, and arts. However, the paradigm of learning through traditional museum culture is beginning to shift through the aid of new social medias. For example, many museums are taking advantage of the new trends in social media in order to maintain cultural authority. According to the text, how will social media affect museum communication? By working with new medias and engaging the trends of audiences through things such as blogs, wikis, and blogs, it can be argued that there are, quote, strong reasons for social media to add value to the museum programs, end quote. Some museums are really embracing the new interactive aspects of social media offers by creating entire exhibits and exhibitions built around the interactive participation of museum goers. For example, the Cleveland Museum of Art in Ohio recently did a redesign in order to make the museum totally interactive. In an interview about the redesign with the museum's firm principal, Patrick Gallagher, he explains that by moving the museum into the digital age, the institution becomes more of a, quote, place of discussion, debate, and interaction, end quote. Furthermore, the use of new social media gives rise to cultural awareness as well. In the text, Educational Media International, Volume 46, Issue 2, 2009, The Impact of Social Media on Informal Learning in Museums, the text argues that, quote, social media offers young people agency previously unavailable in informal learning environments in order to explore complex responses to and participation with cultural context, end quote, meaning that by adding the use of social media into the trends of museum practices, the museum attendees will be able to fully react and respond to artifacts they see, instead of, for example, simply reading the description card and moving on. Ideally, the integration of social media will help another generation of scholars become more holistic and active cultural participants. Sadly, the artifacts in museums are often culturally significant, regarded as priceless, and are often high in value, which is why, in 2003, the National Museum of Iraq was looted during the invasion of the Gulf War. As some background, the museum, in hand with British ties, hosted a collection of largely English and Arabic. The National Museum of Iraq was also famous for housing a vast collection of over 5,000 Mesopotamian artifacts in 28 different galleries and vaults. The collection is said to contain artifacts from ancient Sumeria, Babylon, Akkadian, and Assyrian civilizations, Islamic artifacts, and also the framed Nimrud gold collection from the 9th century. The thefts took place between April 10 through April 12, 2013, and museum officials stated that the looters raided the main exhibits as well as the storage areas, even after the American Council for Cultural Policy had asked the United States Pentagon to protect the museum. However, it can be argued that without the international news media coverage, knowledge of the National Museum of Iraq looting would have been minimal and most likely had little impact on awareness of a global scale. With pressures from outlets such as Associated Press, NPR, and the Daily Telegraph, odds are the United States would not have sent agents to Iraq to search for museum property. News coverage played heavily on the cultural loss the Iranian people suffered with the museum looting. For example, National Public Radio's Robert Siegel announced on his segment All Things Considered, quote, "As it turns out, American troops were but a few hundred yards away as the country's heritage was spared," end quote. Whereas Associated Press stated, "The framed Iraq National Museum, home of extraordinary Babylonian, Sumerian, and Assyrian collections and rare Islamic texts, sat empty Saturday, except for shattered glass display cases and cracked pottery bowls on littered floor," while also even quoting the President of France, Jacques Chirac, stating that looting from the museum was a crime against humanity, which led the United States into going to France to make plans with the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization in order to retrieve the missing artifacts, ultimately gaining back 1,000 artifacts for the museum. In conclusion, the cultural trends of museums and new social medias can no longer be separated. Traditional museum practices are a perfect stage for new media to take shape, with new integrated and interactive exhibits becoming the new trend in museum life. The connection with technology continues to grow. Also, with the combination of museum teachings with current trends of social media, the ideas of different cultures and traditions are more accessible for informal learning. And furthermore, although the paradigms of it may be shifting, new media is helping with the preservation of artifacts and culture for future generations to come.